Satan cannot make you do anything and cannot overrule God's will for your life. But Satan does tempt us, and when we give into those temptations, we can often block ourselves from the clarity God wanted to give us. So here are 4 signs Satan's temptations are being used to keep you in relationship limbo. Number 1, you could be in relationship limbo if you are waiting for someone God is not telling you to wait for. When I use the phrase relationship limbo, I'm talking about a season in life where you're stuck between 2 viable options. Does God want you single or married? Does he want you to try online dating or just to wait for someone to appear in your life or to meet someone at church? Does God want you to date that friend of yours or just keep being friends? One of the easiest ways to get stuck in relationship limbo and to cause confusion is to wait for a person that God isn't telling you to wait for. Satan wants you to miss what God wants for you by tempting you to cling to what God doesn't have for you. Isaiah 43:18-19 is referring to greater things than relationships, but the principle of letting go of the old to receive something new can be seen very clearly in this passage. It states, "Forget the former things, do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it?" Satan wants you to not perceive it when God is telling you to let go of that old relationship. If God is leading you to move on, do it. You cannot receive something new until you let go of the old. For more on this, you can watch my playlist of videos called "Is God Telling You to Wait for That Person or to Move On?" by clicking the card in the right corner of your screen. Number 2. You could be in relationship limbo if Satan is tempting you to use a legalistic approach to your pursuit of marriage. Pursuing marriage as a Christian single person can be really confusing at times because the Bible doesn't lay out a rigid plan that all Christians have to follow exactly if they want to meet the person God has for them. Some people meet their spouse through online dating, and other people are on the total opposite end of the spectrum and marry a childhood friend. Some people meet a person at church and they become friends for a few years and they go through a long season of courting, and then they end up getting married one day. Other people meet at church and instantly start dating, and then they get married one day. And guess what? God is fine with all of that as long as it's done in a godly way and the people are not sinning as they pursue marriage. If God wanted all of us to meet, date, and marry our spouses in the exact same way, then he would have made that very clear in his word by giving us a step-by-step exact blueprint that he wants us all to follow. But God didn't do that because God doesn't want that. God does give us standards that we have to follow, and he does explain some very clear relationship rules in his word. But there's no one rigid formula that all of us need to follow to meet the person he wants us to marry. It's safe to say that Satan wants you to be a legalistic person. You will get stuck in limbo if you are falling for the lie that meeting your spouse has to happen in one rigidly religious way, or else your relationship will be worldly. Satan wants us to be defined by the words of Isaiah, quoted by Jesus in Matthew 15, verses 8-9. "These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. They worship me in vain. Their teachings are merely human rules." Of course, you must obey the Bible, but don't blindly obey man-made ideas and rules that are not actually in the Bible when it comes to dating and relationships. Number 3. You could be in relationship limbo if you want a Christian marriage, but Satan is tempting you to disobey and not follow Christ. One of the most common reasons many Christian singles end up in relationship limbo and in long seasons of unwanted singleness is because they're living a double life. On one hand, they're spending time in the world and getting connected with people that they know God doesn't want them getting connected with. But in their hearts, they also know they really want a godly marriage. They want God's best. So when this plays out in relationships, it goes something like this. You date someone who is not living for Christ, you get attached to this person, but since you know you really want to marry a godly spouse, you end up breaking up with this person, or you wait to marry them until they transform into the Christian spouse you are waiting for, which rarely happens in situations like this, so you end up just waiting forever. On the other hand, since you know you are living a worldly life, you also refuse to date other people who are actually following Jesus because you are afraid that you are not good enough for them. Therefore, you are dating people who you will never marry, and you are not dating people you would marry. Satan loves this endless cycle because it keeps you in relationship limbo, constantly dating people you know you will never marry and constantly avoiding those people you would want to marry. Therefore, if you want to glorify God in your relationships and meet the person He wants you to meet, you have to fully follow Christ with your life. Obviously, that shouldn't be the main aim of your life, but you can do nothing apart from Jesus Christ that is glorifying to God if you don't first remain in Jesus, as it says in John 15, verse 5. And number 4, you could be in relationship limbo if you have a lot of biblical knowledge, but Satan is tempting you to live unwisely when it comes to relationships. Knowledge is about what you know in your mind. Wisdom, however, is about applying what you know in the way that you live your life. So you can know that you're not supposed to be unequally yoked, but if you're living unwisely and getting connected with people you know you're not supposed to be connected with, or you're just trusting people at face value when they say they're Christian, but there's no fruit in their life, then you're going to end up in unequally yoked relationships, even though you know in your mind that shouldn't happen because you're not applying wisdom. You can know premarital sex is a sin, but if you're not being wise in putting up healthy guidelines and boundaries in your dating relationships, then you're going to end up having premarital sex because you're not living wisely. You can know God is sovereign, but if you don't actually trust Him, then you're going to be filled with all kinds of anxiety. When you read through the book of James, you will see a theme arising about living wisely. But notice what it says about mere knowledge in James 2, verse 19. You believe that there is one God. Good. Even the demons believe that and shudder. This is why in James 2:17 it states, in the same way, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead. Satan is not scared by your knowledge. He is fine with you learning as long as it does not affect the way you live your life. In all areas of life, even when it comes to relationships, God wants you to apply your biblical knowledge so you are actually taking meaningful actions that will lead you to following His will. Knowledge without wisdom leads to passivity. And when you are overly passive in relationships, it leads to getting stuck in limbo. You can tap this video if you want to keep learning with me, and you can tap this icon here if you want to subscribe to the AGW channel, which will help you never miss the videos I'm posting every single week. I'm Mark from ApplyGodsWord.com. Really hope this was helpful to you. Until next time, God bless.